Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. How are you doing? I do hope you're doing marvellously well. I'm doing great, thank you very much, and it's so lovely to be with you tonight, to be able to share with you a super story. So before we get started, don't forget to go and get yourself that lovely effervescent drink or something really lovely and warm, because I've got a lovely story for you tonight. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell and the thumbs up, and let's get started with tonight's story. Dear Sarah, and all your lovely listeners, I've always enjoyed the blissful, calmative, free-fall moments you experience when lying in bed, where you drift from a somniferous sleepfulness to wakefulness, where you catch yourself in a drowsy dream that seems so lucidly clear that it might just be real. But when you rise up from your languid slumber and you wipe the sluggish, torpid cobwebs and crumbs of sleep away from your eyes, you feel ever so slightly disappointed that your dream was just that, only a dream. Your senses almost reboot, as you suddenly are reminded of who you are, and the thoughts of your daily purposes come flooding into your mind like a shopping list that needs your immediate attention, and some of the items on your list seem less than desirable, like the curtains you need to take to the dry cleaners, and the important word you need to have with the pupils' parents for bullying behaviour in class that had got out of control and needs to be addressed. But as I lie here, seemingly comatose in my bed, I can't wake from this pleasant dream of mine. Not that I mind, of course, as a few more blissful moments of pacifying sleep are most gladly welcomed, most warmly appreciated. I'd hardly begrudge myself some extra minutes of peaceful relaxation. But this idiosyncratic experience is more than a little bizarre for me, as it would seem my listless dream is deeper than usual, and rising out of it is not easy. It's almost as if I cannot naturally wake up, which is an unsettling, enigmatic feeling that is completely alien to me. I feel as if I'm being weighed down, almost as if someone is sitting directly on my chest and squeezing the very life out of me. It's like I'm powerless to actually move, and this debilitating feeling scares me. It's as if a foreboding sense of panic seems to energize my cells, with that adrenal response you get when being chased by a wild animal. But I can only run in my dreams, as my physical body seems lethargically unobliging and very uncooperative. I can sense there's a blanket thrown across me, but it doesn't feel feathery, lightweight, or softly comfortable like my duvet at home. It doesn't smell familiar either. Nor can I feel the lightweight figure of my little Yorkshire Terrier, Snoopy, lying at the bottom of my bed, or between my legs, or the warm presence of my husband sleeping at my side. I can't smell his regular coconut shampoo that he uses, or the faint residue of the Kuros aftershave he wears every day. I suddenly realise I'm not in my bed at home, but then where am I? If I know anything at all, I do know this. I am not at home. Could I be in a hotel or a bed and breakfast, I wonder? But how did I get here? The monumental question that enigmatically hovers over me like an ominous black thundercloud is, where the hell am I? I hasten to say there is a small part of me that doesn't want to know the answer to that curious question. I have a foreboding sense that I won't like the answer to the question I seek. Some things are best not knowing, so I put the question in the dark corner of my mind, where it can gather a little dust, like a wrapped-up present that has long since been forgotten about. I sense there are more thoughts I don't want to entertain, memories I don't want to recall, a graceless feeling that is so dark I cannot open it up, like a balloon that if I puncture, I know the consequences will not be good. It would be like I have to relive that haunting memory all over again, and I'm afraid to say that memory has a blazing danger sign on it, with a skull and crossbones that says, "Do not touch, do not disturb, highly combustible." I cannot fathom why I inexplicably feel consumed by exhaustion, I have no desire to open my eyes. Just sleeping a little longer won't hurt, but I wish my legs weren't aching so much. My whole body feels as if I'd been working out at the gym excessively, for 1,000 hours at a time. I had heard of people who worked out so hard they cannot go near an exercise machine for weeks afterwards, as they'd worn themselves out too much. Believe it or not, that does actually happen. The mind boggles that people would do this to their own bodies, in their bountiful enthusiasm to get fit quickly, that brutally backfires on them. Is this what has happened to me? Is this why I feel so worn out? So worn to a frazzle? But I'm not the type to excessively exercise at a gym, am I? I mean, I hate working out. I literally have to drag myself to one of those stair climbers. I'm the last person to arrive at the gym and the first to leave. And if I can put exercise off for another day, another week or month or season, I'll almost certainly gladly do it. There is no love lost between me and a stair climber at a gym, or a gym instructor egging me on to do just one more push-up. In a trice, I remember that I hadn't been to a gym for months. I had fortuitously broken my ankle when I fell over a wet puddle on the kitchen floor. Some water my husband had accidentally spilt when overfilling the dog's water bowl and forgotten to mop up. I had walked into the kitchen carrying a large paper bag of shopping in my hand and had gone skating across the slippery floor and tripped over our black Labrador dog that came rambunctiously running in my path, wagging his tail profusely, eager to greet me. Yes, that's right, I remember. I'd returned home from the supermarket. I slipped, took a tumble, tripped, fell over the dog, along with a confetti of uncongenial groceries that scattered precariously across the floor, eager to trip me up like landmines with treacherous consequences. My ankle had just snapped like that. It had sounded like the popping noise you hear when a branch is broken off a tree. I remember it had really hurt. I'd cried out in pain and ended up having surgery on that ankle, as I'd fractured it quite badly. I suddenly realised that even though I want to open my eyes, I can't, and that really scares me. Why can't I open my eyes? Why can't I sit up? Why am I so tired? And why does my body hurt so very much? None of this makes any sense at all. I lie there motionless, not through any choice of my own, but because my body is failing to respond to my internal commands. It's like my brain is not firing on all its cylinders, and that revelation is very alarming to me. I'm trying to make sense of everything. I know who I am. My name is Jeanette Pearson. I'm 28 years old. I'm married to Piers, and I'm a 5th grade school teacher for pupils ranging between the ages of 9 and 10. We live near Lexington, Kentucky, in a beautiful farmhouse. We have a black Labrador dog called Maddox and a Yorkshire Terrier called Snoopy. We have 2 ginger cats, Moggy and Mop. I try to remember if we have any children. Surely I should remember something significant like that. Of course, I remember. Me and my husband were planning to try for a baby in a couple of years' time. But as to why this is the case, and why we postponed having a baby, I can't remember. Why had we put off having children? What was so important that we had put our plans on hold like this? Not knowing the answer to that perturbing question is rather unsettling for me. I hate not knowing the answer to something that should be straightforwardly easy to understand. Why can't I remember? I am then hit with the stunning realization that I know exactly where I am. The sterilized smell of bleach and disinfectant are familiar to me from when I was recently in hospital with a broken ankle. Of course, I'm in hospital. Am I coming round from anaesthesia? It certainly feels like that. After an ankle operation, I tried to remember. As far as I can remember, I didn't need any further surgery on my ankle. The doctor was exceedingly pleased with my progress. I had begun physiotherapy on that ankle. So why would I be back in hospital? Did I have an accident of some kind? Or worse still, am I dead? Could I be on a mortuary slab? The thought fills me with horror. Am I dead? Is this why I feel so incapacitated? Is this why I'm sleeping and I can't wake up? Is this what they mean when they say a person is at rest? But I'm not at rest. I'm a restless, frustrated spirit confined to a body that simply won't respond to the signals in my brain. Is this what it feels like to be dead? I sigh with relief when I realise I can't be dead. I can feel the rise and fall of my chest, so I'm definitely breathing. That's a huge relief. I feel an impertinent tube thrusting itself invasively down my throat. It must be a ventilator of some kind. Then there are definitely tubes attached to my arms. Possibly an intravenous tube for medicine and nutrients. I can sense that I'm entwined with obnoxious tubes and wires. I can hear the obsequious machines making a strange vibrational purring noise. I'm sure there's a heart monitor attached to me as well. I hear that squeaking, clicking digital sound that you often hear in the movies, in medical dramas, which speeds up when I become anxious. Have I been in an accident of some kind, I wonder? I try to feel all of my body parts. Are they together? I'm heartily relieved to sense that I can feel my toes and my fingers. Well, that's got to be a good thing. I'd like to move them, though, but I can't. I'm locked in a body that just refuses to move. I must be in some kind of a coma. But if this is coma, why am I aware of my environment? Like a blind fish might be aware of its tank. I can even sense the size of this hospital room and see dark shadows moving around me from beneath the lids of my eyes. This is a surreal experience. Any moment now, I'm going to wake up and tell my husband Piers about my bizarre, lucid and vivid dream, and we're going to laugh about it. Yet I have a gnawing feeling in my gut that whispers quietly into my ears. Words I don't want to entertain or contemplate. No dream, no dream, no dream. Who is she? I hear a nurse's voice, as two pairs of light feet pad into the room, while the door squeaks open on its hinges. One of the nurses appears to be writing something on a sheet. I can hear her scribbling onto paper, and can sense she's checking all my vitals. HR, 65 BMP, BP, 120/80, SpO2, 97%, she says, scribbling the details down, and making a verbal note of the time and date. Oh, she was brought in night before last, I believe. Oh, I see. I've been off duty. I wasn't informed that we had a new patient. What happened? Was it a car accident? It looks pretty grim, if you ask me. No, it wasn't a car accident. That's a strange thing. She was found lying in the middle of a dirt road, off the beaten track, all beaten up. She has strange, ambiguous scratches all over her body, I believe. Took a very bad bang to the head, I'm told. Doctor says he's never seen anything like it before. Some of those gouges are pretty deep. Looks like some wild animal tore her to pieces, left her for dead, without even bothering to eat her up. It's the most bizarre thing. Some of these gouges were so deep they had to be stitched up, and she was very lucky the scratches missed her femoral artery by a hair's breadth, otherwise she wouldn't be gracing this machine. Dr. Finnegan says it's a miracle she's alive, but the big question is, can she pull through from the precipice of death? It's like she's hanging on the knife edge of a cliff. Poor thing. I can't imagine what she's been through. That's weird. You're saying she was found lying in the middle of the road? That's right. She was taking her dogs for a walk, I believe. The husband realised something was wrong when the two dogs came tearing back to the house, scratching and whimpering at the front door. They were in a dreadful state, scared to death they were, cowering under the furniture, he says. They've been on edge ever since, reluctant to even go into the yard to even pee. So he's had to put newspaper down in their kitchen to do their business. Something must have really spooked them to behave like that. Was it the husband who found her like this? I believe so. He ran out of the house and followed the dirt road. He called the ambulance when he found her lying there like that. Her clothes were in shreds, looked like sharp knives had ripped them apart. He said the area stank of death and decay. It was putrid, really putrid. What time was this? Well, it was getting slightly dark. His wife is a 5th grade school teacher, I believe. She'd been marking the class's homework. and was very conscientious, so she finished the marking and then took 2 eager dogs for a walk. When it was slightly dark? Are you kidding me? Why would the husband let her do that? Go out into the dark? Don't know. People are very strange. Why do they do what they do? That's the $101 question. From what I gathered, he claimed she always walked her dogs at night, without any problems. And he said the Labrador is a good watchdog. Good watchdog? My foot! Are you for real? The first sign of trouble, and he's back at the front door, cowering in terror. Some watchdog, if you ask me. I gather she's been in hospital recently. Broken ankle, tripped over the Labrador in their kitchen. That dog sounds like a liability, and this woman is clearly accident-prone. What's her name, anyway? Let's see. It's over here. Jeanette Pearson. Husband says she's often called JJ. She's 28 years old. Any children? Not that I'm aware of. She looks young, though. Not that you can see much with those black bruises around her eyes, and her cheeks are very puffy. Well, that's a relief, I mean that she doesn't have any children yet. How's the husband taking it? I suppose it's a stupid question to ask. I gather he's a right mess. He was sobbing in here yesterday. I had to go and get him some tissues. He's been blaming himself for letting her take the dogs out at night. Well, finally he's seeing sense, but it's a little late to cry over spilt milk. My husband would never dream of letting me take the dogs out in the middle of the night for a walk. He'd freak out. What is her long-term prognosis, anyway? Oh, you mean her condition? Well, it's too early to tell, isn't it? She's only been here for 2 days. Some people are in a coma for months, even years. It depends if the swelling goes down in her brain, I think. But I haven't spoken to Dr. Finnegan about her condition. But I do feel sorry for the husband. But honestly, I ask you, what was the man thinking? I don't care if you live in the middle of nowhere. No husband should allow his wife to go out on her own in the middle of the night. You're absolutely right about that. At the very least, he should have accompanied her on the walk. That would have been the chivalrous thing to do. They're wild animals out there, for goodness sake. Coyotes, bears. You hear stories all the time. And based on her injuries, something really big must have attacked her. But what? That's the question. You think it was a mountain lion? They can be pretty fierce. But strange that she wasn't actually eaten. Surely they'd have dragged her away and at least eaten parts of her body. Not sure. Dr. Finnegan says he ain't seen anything like this before. If it was a mountain lion, maybe something scared it off. But the doctor thinks it was a powerful beast with excessively sharp claws, capable of doing a lot of damage. Do these 2 nurses have any clue that I can hear absolutely every word they're saying about me? I'm glad they've been talking about me, as at least I know what's going on. I wish I could communicate somehow, tell them I'm all right, but I can't even twitch an eyelash. So I'm in a coma. I've gathered that much. I was brought in the night before last after being found lying in the middle of a dirt road. My dogs were so terrified they raced back to the house. What the hell happened? My disorganized mind is a scramble. I don't even remember marking papers, but it sounds about right. What I would probably be doing at that time of the evening. Why am I so scratched up? I try to recall the event, what must have ensued, but nothing enlightening or explanatory comes into my mind. It's like my memory refuses to edify me by being replayed in my mind. It is cloaked in a tenebrous obscurity and ambiguous twilight, from which all answers are being rebuffed and spat out, rather like the rinds from a juicer, almost as if there's an elucidative part of me that refuses to remember the incident. After the nurses leave, I must have drifted off into a sleepy haze, but I'm awoken to hear the squeak of a chair being pulled up to the side of my bed. I can recognize my husband's voice. Oh, thank God he's here. My spirits lift immediately, but I cannot do anything to tell him that I'm very much wide awake, buried inside my unresponsive body. I want to scream out, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm awake, I'm awake. But I can't even move my lips or twitch an eyelash. My husband is leaning over me. He kisses me on the cheek. His lips feel cold. but his voice is warm and tender. He pulls up the chair close to my bed and holds my hand in his. I notice his hand is lovely and warm. I wish you would wake up, sweetheart. You gave me quite a shock when I saw you lying in the middle of the road like that. For a moment, I thought I'd lost you. I've never been so scared in all my life. I couldn't even feel your pulse. You were covered in blood. There were scratches all over you. You were barely recognizable. I was so scared. And those EMTs, when they came to pick you up in the ambulance, they didn't look hopeful either about you. But I know you're in there, sweetheart, somewhere, and I hope you can hear me. I know you will get better soon. I'm sure of it. Everybody's praying for you. When I phoned your parents to tell them what had happened, they were freaking out. You know what your mother's like, and how she can react. They'll be here to visit you later. Your mother was not best pleased with me, I have to say. But then that's old news, isn't it? I mean, when is she ever pleased with me? She said I should never have allowed you to go walking the dogs at night. You should have seen how she flew off the handle at me, ranting on and on about how irresponsible I was as a husband, how I'm not looking after you properly, and what a disappointing son-in-law I am. Of course, she's right, but you've always been stubborn, and she knows that well. At least your father cut me some slack. That's a good man, your father. He apologized for your mother's outburst, saying she was upset, looking for someone to blame. Tell me something new. Anyway, they're worried sick about you, champing at the bit to see you. They can't get here soon enough. But your mother's too afraid to fly, so they're driving here. Let's just say Snoopy is desperately sad. With your not being around, she looks like a lost soul, poor dog. I don't think she likes lying in my legs at night. She's used to yours. Mine are too long. Maddox is restless without you. He's pacing around up and down like a wild animal in a zoo enclosure. The animals aren't happy. None of them are without you around. They're too scared to go out of the house. Something has rarely spooked them. Whatever attacked you has scared the life out of them. The vet's given them some calming meds. I'm hoping they'll do the trick. When I cooked the poached chicken for them, both Mops and Moggy, both those cats sniffed my chicken and gave me a very disapproving look last night and sauntered off looking less than pleased with me. They rarely gave me the cold shoulder, I have to say. It was like the chicken I cooked for them was positively inferior compared to what you give them. They refused to touch it, and they continued to meow. There were a plethora of complaints from them when I cut it up. Mops gave me such a glare. Never seen her look at me like that before. Later on, I discovered her eating a rat under our bed, would you believe it? I woke up in the middle of the night to hear this strange chewing sound. I couldn't work out what it was. I tried to find its source, and there she was, under the bed, Mops, surrounded by guts and gore and blood and sinew. The rat he'd eaten. I even saw the thing's liver, would you believe it? It was a macabre sight, not to mention its decapitated head with its little whiskers. It was like a graphic crime scene. Horrific, really. I realised the chicken I cooked must have been really bad for him to go and kill that rat. How long are you supposed to poach chicken for anyway? I boiled those 2 chicken breasts for 1.5 hours in chicken stock. Isn't that how you do it? But they were quite hard. Tough as old boots, actually. Very shrunken and small. I think I must have done something wrong. But they say you should not undercook chicken, don't they? So I had to be absolutely sure it was thoroughly cooked, didn't I? If you ask me, they charge far too much for chicken breasts when once they're cooked, they're only a fraction of the size. Well, anyway, let's just say the house is not the same without you. I miss you dreadfully, sweetheart. I feel so alone without you by my side. The place just seems so dead, so lost. Everyone is lost without you. Your doctor's name is Dr. Finnegan. He's a good sort, really. You know, an old-fashioned type. I liked him at once. He tells me I should talk to you all the time. He says patients often respond to being talked to. But it breaks my heart to see you like this. If I could take your place, I would in a heartbeat. You know I would. Needless to say, everyone at the school is thinking about you. You are being remembered in everybody's prayers. I gather during the assembly they had this morning, they held special prayers especially for you. And some of the students were crying. I have a card here for you from the kids in your class. They all signed it. I'll read it to you if you like. Lots of people have written personal notes to you on the side here. I'll read some for you that are particularly sweet. Let's look at this one. This is a nice one. Dear Mrs. Pearson, you're my absolute favourite teacher. You have to get better soon, otherwise school will never ever be the same without you, and I'll be very sad. From Diane Asher. This one is from Peter Boulder. He writes, Mrs. Pearson, you're such a nice teacher. You're pretty and you're funny and everybody likes you. But I like you the very best, more than anybody else, and I'm very, very sad that you are sick, and I hope that you get better soon and come back to school. This is another one, I think. Dear Mrs. Pearson, I heard you got scratched up and beaten up. I wish I could have used my dad's shotgun to save you from that horrible monster. I can't believe that anything could happen so horrible to the best teacher in our school. Love, Jessica Rondell. I desperately want to reach out and reassure my husband. I can see he's taking strain, blaming himself for everything that happened to me. But it seems I'm the one that got myself into this pickle. I'm responsible for what had happened. I've always been so stubborn. No wonder my ginger cats are moody. With my husband cooking chicken breast that should be poached for a few minutes for 1.5 hours. It'll be like eating a leather boot. No wonder they went hunting for a better choice. I'm so frustrated that I can't communicate this with my husband. I hear the door open. My husband rises from his chair as it squeaks backwards. Hello, Dr. Finnegan, I hear him saying to the doctor as they shake hands. How is my wife doing? It's early days, Mr. Pearson. Early days, as I keep telling you. Remember, she was only brought in to us the night before last. She's taken a big beating to the brain, and there's a great deal of swelling. Only time will tell if she will come out of her coma. It's very difficult to give you a long-term prognosis. The scans aren't very clear at this stage, and everybody is different. Everybody's body heals differently too. I've seen people who look like they're not going to make it suddenly wake up. And others, where shall we say the opposite is true. Currently your wife's scans don't look good. I'm not going to lie to you. But there is always hope on the horizon, and prayer can perform masterful miracles. I've seen it in my line of work, things that just amaze me. As I keep saying, keep talking to her. They do claim some people in a coma can hear exactly what's going on. I have been talking to her, Doctor, like you recommended, but she hasn't even twitched an eyelash or moved a muscle. Well, that doesn't surprise me, not at the early stage like this. Good man, keep talking to her, watch for any vital responses, and keep us informed. I know it can be discouraging when she doesn't respond, but you never know. She might just hear you. I'm sorry I can't give you any better news at this stage, Mr. Pearson. But as I say, it's early days. And so much could happen in the next few weeks. The human body is remarkable. And your wife is young and resilient. Her age is definitely on her side. Have you thought, Doctor, about the creature that attacked her? Do you think you might know what it could be? No idea, Mr. Pearson. I wish I could give you better insight into this regard. But those scratches and bite marks were something else. They did look canine, though. Very definitely canine. I'd rule out a bear, that's for sure. Never seen anything like it before. The doctor leaves the room and my husband draws up the chair to the side of my bed and once again takes my hand in his.
I just wish I knew what happened to you, sweetheart. What attacked you? What left you for dead? If I could get that creature, I would kill it for you without even breaking a sweat.
I can hear the door open and the sound of my mother's alarmed voice, hurriedly trotting over to my bed, with my father padding behind her.
Now don't panic, Erica. I warned you. She's not going to look good. You're probably not going to recognize her.
I can hear my mother audibly gasp.
Gigi, is that you, sweetheart? It's Mummy here. Look at you, sweetheart. What's happened? We got here as soon as we could, darling. You gave me and your father quite the shock. I've never been so frightened in all my life.
My mother pauses for a moment and blows her nose loudly in a tissue.
That doesn't look like my daughter. She's barely recognizable. This is your entire fault, Piers. It's entirely your fault, and I blame you for this. You're irresponsible. You're a very irresponsible husband. What my daughter saw in you, God only knows. You've really let her down. You've let us all down. I'm very disappointed in you. What can I say? How could you let our daughter walk the dogs at night? Anything could have happened to her.
Enough, Erica. You don't need to upset Piers. He's been through enough. And don't you dare point a finger at him. You know how willful JJ can be. If she never listened to us growing up, why should she listen to her husband? I'm sure Piers here discouraged her from going out, but you know what JJ's like.
That's no excuse. That is no excuse. He shouldn't have allowed her to go out in the middle of the night. It's not reasonable. It's not acceptable. What kind of a husband are you?
Thank you, Clayton, for sticking up for me. But Erica here is absolutely right. I should have put my foot down. I should have stopped her going out like that. But she wanted to enjoy some fresh air and exercise. And she's been walking like this for the last 3 years. And nothing like this has ever happened before.
My mother audibly gasps.
You mean my daughter, JJ, has been out on these nightly soirees with her dogs for the last 3 years? And you never stopped her? You never thought to tell us about it? Are you crazy? What is wrong with you? I don't understand you at all, Piers. You're very odd.
You know, JJ, says my husband, she's a free spirit. She can't bear to be stifled. She needs her space.
That's no excuse, Piers. What were you thinking? What were you thinking? Now, thanks to you, she's lying here, half dead in a hospital bed. And we don't even know if she's even going to pull through this. And we've got you to thank for this. This is entirely your fault.
Now enough of this, Erica. We're in this together. Our daughter is in a coma, and she wouldn't like to hear us squabbling like this. As I keep saying, we're in this together, and rather than ripping each other to shreds, we need to support each other. And despite what you say, Erica, our daughter is responsible for the choices she makes in her own life. We can't blame Piers for what happened here. I heard a story once of parents who watched their kid die from that eating disorder. What's it called? When you deliberately starve yourself?
Anorexia nervosa,
snaps my mother defensively.
You do go on, Clayton. What's a bloody eating disorder got to do with JJ anyway?
Well, their young daughter refused to eat. It was her choice, her decision, her body. The parents tried everything to help her eat, but she stubbornly refused to ingest anything. In the end, the very distressed parents had to watch their child fade away and die before their very eyes.
What on earth are you talking about, Clayton? I fail to see what this has to do with JJ. You do talk about the most ridiculous stuff.
What I'm trying to say, sweetheart, is our daughter is responsible for her choices. This is her body. This is her life. No one forced her to go for a walk. just like no one forced that anorexic to eat. In the end, she made the decision to die because she refused to eat, and that was the natural outcome of her choices. Just like our daughter made a decision to go walking at night. Everything engages risk of some kind.
And your point is, Clayton, what is your point?
My point is, Erica, our daughter has some accountability for this. She's not completely blameless.
I don't know why we're even talking about this, says my mother. It's not like we can change anything. What is done is done. But where do we go to from here? I mean, what is the doctor's prognosis?
So there we are. That is part 1 of our story. Tomorrow night is part 2. Until next time, goodbye and good night.